So right now, I'd like to invite our panelists that are here to come on up to the stage, so to speak. We're going to move into our Faces of Caregiving Lived Experience panel. Caregiving can mean many things and include many different tasks or responsibilities. Often, caregivers are family members, and their roles change as their needs or their loved ones changed. Our panel is here to share their experiences. We continually welcome Harriet Redman, a member of the Wisconsin Family and Caregiver Support Alliance. She is going to be moderating this panel, which includes a parent, a sibling, an autistic adult, and a parent of an autistic adult themselves, and the parent of an autistic young adult. I'm not sure if all of our panelists are able to make it today, so Harriet will also be serving in the role, and other people on the panel if they have experience. For a panelist that may not be able to join us this morning, please feel free to share that experience as well. So let me tell you who we're going to have a chance to hear from today. Welcome in Danielle Tolsman. Danielle is a caregiver from Columbia County. She supports her young son with autism spectrum disorder and other conditions. She's an active grandparent to preteens with intellectual and developmental disabilities. She brings lived experience across multiple caregiving roles and stages of life. Professionally, she serves as Executive Director of Family Voices of Wisconsin, where her work reflects the same systems and experiences that she navigates personally. Thank you for being here, Danielle. Caitlin McNamara. Caitlin lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She works for the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities as a project manager focused on peer-led education models. She's also the executive director of the Sibling Leadership Network, a national organization focused on providing evidence-based information and supports to siblings of people with higher support needs and advocating for national policies that support family caregivers. She brings a lived experience lens as a sibling to two siblings with higher support needs, an autistic sister with a developmental disability and mental health diagnosis who lives and works as an artist in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and a sister who suffered a traumatic brain injury in high school who now lives and works as a pediatric ICU nurse in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Thank you for being here, Caitlin. And Colleen McCluskey. Colleen lives in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. She currently works as an educator at Nicolet College in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which is part of the Wisconsin Technical College System. She was evaluated as having level 1 autism in 2000 during first grade. Since then, she's worked hard to understand and advocate for mental health, neurodiversity, and disability rights within the academic sphere. She provides care for her father, who has level 2 autism, in addition to Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Thank you so much for being here, Colleen. And Harriet, I turn it over to you.
You bet. Well, I am delighted that we can gather these folks together and have this discussion. We'll just let the rest of the participants in on our conversation, and I look forward to this. Um, and I've known Caitlin for a long time as a sibling, and I've seen Danielle's name with Family Voices. And Colleen, I don't believe we've met, but I'm delighted that you're here as well. Um, we've got several questions, so we're just going to dive in. I think we have about 45 minutes, maybe a little bit less. Um, well, let's start out on a positive note. You've all experienced some role of caregiving, so if you wouldn't mind restating that role. Tim introduced you, but if you would kind of restate it when you answer this question, that'd be helpful. Um, what do you find rewarding about caregiving? And let's start with Danielle.
Hi there, everyone. Danielle Tolsman, sitting in Portage today. I am primary caregiver to an adult diagnosed with autism, and I share that with you with his permission. And I'm also, frankly, an active grandparent and a care, I care for a caregiver in my daughter, who is a single parent to two not quite teens, but getting closer, who are also affected by intellectual and developmental disabilities. Um, I think that what's rewarding for me, is that I know that I'm in a position as a grandparent, knowing that I can provide that support to my daughter, that, even just grandma sitting on the floor and playing with my granddaughters so that my daughter can go, she'll be like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. No, it's okay. I want to. This is where I want to be. And then she
Mhm.
just organically handles the things that I suspect have been, deprioritized as we all do as primary caregivers. Um, but I leave that time myself feeling fulfilled and like I'm doing good stuff. And especially when it's my daughter and my granddaughters, it makes it a little easier. Is it a little tougher sometimes on the days when maybe my energy is feeling low, but it's Wednesday and it's my day to go be grandma? Yes. But when I leave, I always feel good about it. I always feel
Yeah,
good about it.
pretty ordinary kind of activity, but in extraordinary circumstances. You are a superhero. I'd love to have you as my grandma.
Thank you.
How about you, Caitlin? What's rewarding about being a sister of two individuals?
Yeah, so I have two sisters. I have three sisters, so I don't never mean to leave the baby out of this conversation. She's not a baby anymore. She's in her 20s, but there's I'm the oldest of four girls total. And my two middle sisters are the sisters who have higher support needs that have come either from developmental disability or injury. And I feel like I have so many tools in my toolbox as a result of growing up with that experience that apply to all kinds of relationships in my life. And I feel like being the sib of someone with higher support needs means that I'm always gathering more tools. And so I'm never like reaching a status quo in terms of how I'm growing as a person as well, because the family needs or the caregiving needs are constantly changing as we're growing and learning together. And so that is something that has been really useful, not only in my relationships with my siblings, but also in relationship with my parents, with coworkers, with friends, and relationships. And I think that I don't know what I would have been like as a person without that experience. But I know that I'm grateful for all the tools that that experience provided me to be the person that I am now.
Yeah, you've developed some real superpowers. Uh, and and it's great that you have the clarity to recognize that um, that and that's a gift as well. That's a superpower, if you will, to recognize that. And I know you have applied that to help others, other siblings, and other people as well. So that's you truly are a superhero in that way. So, Colleen, you have some unique experiences. What are you finding rewarding about caregiving?
Um, that is a complicated question. Just to reiterate, I am autistic. I have a level 1 or high functioning autism diagnosis. And I help my mom take care of my dad, who is level 2 autism. Because of the cognitive decline associated with his dementia diagnoses, which are Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, he has gone from level 1 to level 2, which is not a bad thing. It simply means that he needs more support. And it can be challenging and frustrating a lot of the time. But one of the things that I think is rewarding about caregiving is the fact that it has kind of, my mom and I have to work together, kind of in lockstep, in sync to take care of him effectively. And so that's deepened my relationship with her really positively. And it's also taught me to trust the people around me, because as someone with autism, sometimes it feels like um, you can't necessarily trust everyone around you, because you don't know, oh, are they making fun of me? Is this, is stuff like that happened a lot when I was young, especially when I was in like high school, early college, and unlearning that has been hard, but it's been worth it. Like for example, I mentioned in the chat earlier that I gave a presentation, two presentations actually, at the Autism Society of Wisconsin annual conference. And my mom, Betty McCluskey, is actually president of that. So that's really cool. She's board president. But we would not have been able to make it to the conference if it hadn't been for my cousin Pete, who provided respite care for 2 overnights. He is one of the only people that my dad trusts enough. And I would say maybe like 5 or so years ago, I would have been like, oh no, I have to do all of this on my own. But being able to trust him, and trust our neighbors, for example, it's a big step and it's helped me learn a lot about myself. Also, one of the positive things is my relationship with my dad has not always been easy, but I see how a lot of people with disabilities, regardless of what they are, can be easily disrespected by the population at large. And so the fact that I'm able to help him live at home successfully with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's um, is really, really important to me. I think our neurologist says that if it hadn't been for my mom and I, he would have gone into long-term care like 2 years ago. So I think that letting him be in an environment where he can feel like he's understood, he has dignity, all of that is incredibly important to me. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I like how you brought out that trust. That is not a word I would have thought of, but it makes so much sense. Um, and
thank you.
again, you are reflective, and that's important for caregivers to reflect on what this brings to their life and what positives um, and learnings that that they're experiencing. So thank you for that, and thank you for that new thought. Well, we're going to flip it now. Um, on the flip side, what's been difficult about caregiving? And I'm going to add this to it because as a caregiver, and many of us feel this way, we don't want to whine. We hesitate to talk about the negative because we don't want to sound whiny, but we're going to take that time, and it's not going to sound whiny. It's the reality. So, Caitlin, would you mind going first on this one? What is difficult about the caregiving role?
Yeah, it is hard to talk about because it often seems like if it's hard for me, that's the fault or the result of my parents or my sisters. And it isn't ever really that. It's always because I think the systems that we interact with are so convoluted and so dense and sometimes so arbitrary. But arbitrary is kind of a big word, but like it's so difficult to navigate those things. And it doesn't matter sometimes how hard you're trying, you feel like there's still barriers that you can't overcome. And it seems like if you're trying really hard, you should be able to get what you need as a result, and that doesn't always happen. Um, but that's kind of like on a bigger scale. Personally, I feel like the difficult thing for me has been separating out who I am as a person, even in my like, what I was talking about, what I like about myself or like what I like about caregiving. It becomes so intertwined that I can't really separate some parts of me out from that because it's been a lifelong thing for me. And so knowing who I am outside of my relationship with my sisters, knowing who I am outside of my relationship with caring for other people has been something that I've struggled with to define and to support in myself because it can feel, I have a lot of guilt, I think, and some, yeah, I think guilt is the right word for it, about taking care of myself or putting it down caregiving to take care of myself. And so I think that has always been a personal struggle for me because it's been something. My sister with autism is only 15 months younger than me. I don't have a relationship with my life that doesn't involve her, and so making space and time to be like a person outside of those relationships is something that I've had to work on.
Yeah, guilt. You're not alone. That's a very common feeling. Um, and guilt about things that we really need, like respite, taking a break, feeling guilty about that. Um, we have to, maybe it's self-talk. Maybe it's having someone else tell us, don't feel guilty about that. That's what you need. That's what's going to make you stronger. That's what's going to make you there, available, and helpful to your sisters or um, to whomever else you're caring for. Colleen, how about you? I imagine there's all kinds of challenges, but is there one in particular that you want to share?
Um, for me, I mean, caregiver, excuse me, sorry. Caregiving always comes with like the emotional exhaustion, the difficulty talking about it, all of the other things that we've discussed so far today. But for a person with autism as a caregiver, it can be, there are a couple challenges that I think aren't necessarily unique to autistic caregivers, but some they're they're a little bit special to us because of the way that our brains work. Um, so one of the things that I've had to deal with my dad is the fact that I've had to watch co his cognitive decline go for he was diagnosed in 2020, but we think it started in 2018. So it's been an awfully long time. And so there's the grief and loss of having to deal with the, okay, this person is forgetting slowly, losing their cognitive ability, like their critical thinking skills and stuff like that, losing their ability to drive, etc. Um, and that's been really hard because autistic people do not deal well with change. And so it's been very, very difficult for me to work through the feelings of, okay, this is changing. This is not necessarily the same person that we started out with. And then there's also the fact that Alzheimer's does not operate logically. No form of
Mm.
dementia does. And so another thing that you may or may not have heard about autistic people is that we have a strong focus on telling the truth, things like that. So again, when you're dealing with a when you're dealing with a person who does not necessarily remember what year it is, what day it is, who you are, you have to be creative. And I've had to understand that it's less about because the autism and the dementia work together in a really interesting way. So not only does autism not operate on conventional social rules, um, uh, sorry, dementia also doesn't operate on conventional social rules. And so more often than not, it's not, we had the conversation about driving. It's he doesn't drive, for obvious reasons. And he does not know that he has Alzheimer's. And so it's less about um, where's my car and more about do I have autonomy? Because it's like, it's not, it's more about the autonomy that transportation gives you. And so my answer to that question, where's my car, is not going to be, oh, we took away your driver's license. It's going to be, your car is in the shop right now, but I or Betty can take you wherever you want to go. We'll go fishing with you. We'll go to the store with you. You are loved and you are important and we care about you. And that's the answer he really wants. And being able to suss that out is something that has taken me a lot of time and effort to figure out. And um, we
It's
talked earlier.
exhausting.
It is. It's so much. But we talked earlier about becoming stronger and learning more about yourself and your limits and your capabilities. And I don't think I would be half the person I am today if I hadn't experienced this. I don't I don't like it. It's very, very difficult, but at the same time I again, I wouldn't be where I am or who I am. So I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. And I see Caitlin is nodding her head as well. It's true. We would not be who we are. Who we would be, who knows? But you've articulated that so well, Colleen. You've thought through this so carefully. And as you were talking, I thought, again, in that superhero realm, you you have leaped over tall buildings.
In a single
And
bound, baby.
yeah, and maybe it's only other caregivers that truly understand that, but it is true that it may seem ordinary, or you make it look easy, or it's just something you do, but it is leaping over incredible circumstances and incredible complexity. And as Caitlin also mentioned, um, arbitrary, complicated systems, all of that. Those are tall buildings that we leap. Yeah, awesome. Well, Danielle, you've got the answers, right? No, I'm not putting you
Oh,
on the spot. But
no.
what are your challenges, or what's that tall building for you?
For me, as my son's primary caregiver, I am on call 24/7, always on, always, expected to be available. And as much as I enjoy the role, it can be tiring. Um, Sometimes I want to be first, and there's some guilt that comes along
Something again. Yeah.
with that. Um, as a grandparent or as someone who is caring for another caregiver, seeing my daughter struggle can be really hard for me. When I drop by, it's Wednesday, it's our afternoon together, and she meets me at her door and just sobs. Um, it's I'm her mom. And the best that I can offer her in that moment is to be present and to be there. And again, the mom guilt a little bit. I'm feeling like, is that enough? Is there more that I could be doing here? And so that adds some extra complexity. But
Mhm. Yeah. That feeling of inadequacy, that you can't fix it, that you can't relieve her burden, and at the same time realize that um, it's a it's a privilege to be her mom. It's a privilege to be a caregiver. But it's like we used to um, tell the Sibs in the Sib shop. It's kind of like having two different flavors of ice cream on the same cone. You might have licorice and cherry, and then they start to mix, and it's complicated. You can't describe it, but
yeah,
it's it's real. And let me stick with you then, Diane or Danielle.
yeah.
How do you how do you protect yourself? How do you tuck your cape in? How do you take care of what you need? Give yourself that break or what you need.
I think like many others, that's something I'm working on. Um, I hearing the reminder that yes, you can do something to take care of yourself. Yes, you can and should take a minute to do something that you enjoy is something that I found I need to hear from an outside, whether it's from my husband, whether it's from friends, whether it's a random social media post.
Mhm.
For me, I need that outside permission, and then I'm able to go do something. I carved out a couple of hours this week and I went and saw The Devil Wears Prada 2. My own bucket of popcorn, my favorite candy, and it was wonderful. Um, but I had to have someone else tell me that it was okay to do that
Mhm.
before I felt like I could. So
Yeah.
I'm
I,
working
I
on it. Yeah.
yeah, and I have to chime in there too. I do the same thing. I block it off in my calendar because otherwise it doesn't happen. And my day is on Tuesday that I'm seeing that movie. But that's because somebody said, let's go see a movie. I thought, well, okay, I've got some things to organize and prepare to be able to do that. But yeah, that would feel good. Let's do that. Yeah. Thanks, Danielle. How about you, Caitlin? What do you do to get away or take care of yourself?
Yeah, I similarly am not very good at this. I think I am so ingrained now in sibling support that you would think that with all of my advocacy and talking about opportunities for sibling support that I would internalize any of that, and I don't do a great job. And so, a good reminder for me in the work that I do that it is hard to receive that like permission and that recognition of time for support. But I'm finding like talking with other siblings has been a really useful place for me to um, be giving permission and sort of having that mirrored back to me from a group of people who are experiencing something similar to me. Those connections are incredibly important to me. And then I have really good friendships that I have nurtured over a long period of time, even though most of us do not live near each other. Um, and they do a fantastic job of seeing me, letting me vent, knowing that in venting how I'm feeling, what I'm not looking for is for people to tell me to stop doing like the caregiving that I'm doing or to pass judgment on my relationships with my family, but rather that like I need a safe place to put that. And then I need to be distracted by normalcy, and asking them to be that role for me has been a process because for a long time it felt like this was something that I had to keep to myself. But as they've known me and loved me for so long, it's felt like a really important part of being honest in my relationships with people, and then taking the opportunity to hear them say like you deserve to be taken care of and you deserve a break and you can tell me anything and that kind of thing, while knowing that the relationships that work best for me are the ones where people aren't trying to pass like third party judgment on my situation, but rather just be there as a pillar of support for when I'm sick.
I love your phrase, distracted by normalcy. That is that's priceless. That is um yeah, find some normalcy and go there. That's awesome. I love that. Um and also finding those friends. Um it may be that you find friends that inner struggle you're having, you can just share it and they don't judge. Excellent. Um and it might take somebody to remind you to do that occasionally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's where everybody else comes into play, where we can, we know you're superheroes. We know you have capes. Maybe we can be helpful by just understanding that they're looking for that break. They're looking for that 10 minutes of normalcy. They're looking for that movie to go to or that cup of coffee to just share and not be judged. That's awesome. How about you, Colleen? How do you take care of yourself, or how do you observe even your mother taking care of herself?
Um, one of the things, and this is, um, when we talk about having to sort of tag team, someone with another caregiver, um, one of the most important things is checking in with the other person, um, and being like, okay, how are you this morning? Um, is there anything I can do to help? Um, and also anticipating needs as they come up, sort of like, okay, I woke up earlier than you. I'll put out his medication for today, type of deal. Um, but also being able to be transparent with what's going on in your head. One of the things that's always been difficult for me with my autism is that I don't know if this happens for other people, but when I talk about autism, it's kind of like if you're a person without autism, a lot of the time social rules come like a pre-installed program as part of your mental operating system. But if you're autistic, they have to be installed later on, sort of like a program that you buy, install on your computer, and run. And so a lot of it is really being intentional with asking, okay, what's going on? I can't necessarily read your emotions the way that an holistic person, a person without autism, would. So, and also, like, sometimes when I was younger, I used to make up rules because I didn't understand how social situations actually functioned. And then I took a really good sociolinguistics class in college, which is basically the functions of things like small talk, gestures, etc. And that helped me learn a lot. So did the Hidden Curriculum book series. I do not remember the author right now, but if you look that up, that's pretty great. Um, but yeah, understanding that whatever you're thinking about, like, okay, I've jumped to the conclusion that this person doesn't like me because they looked at me funny, may not necessarily be correct. The person may have looked at you funny because you said something weird or because they were having a bad day. And so, what my mom and I do, and this also helps my dad, because of the autism again, also the short-term memory loss is hard. We do this thing called living out loud, where we're really, really intentional about conveying what we're doing. So it's like, okay, we are going to the store today. We actually have a whiteboard where we write that down. Um, and it's like, okay, oh, thank you, James. In the chat, he clarified who the author was.
Okay.
Um, uh, Brenda Smith Miles. Um, anyway, so it's like, okay, today we are going to the store. Um, we are going to leave at 10, et cetera, et cetera. And that helps me because I do well with the structure. And it also helps my dad because, again, he's autistic too, but he can only hold on to ideas for so long. So that's one of the big ones. Um, in terms
I
of
don't know
how,
if the book has been written yet, but if you write a book, call it Living Out Loud. I love that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that the book has been written
Oh,
already.
okay.
The idea of living out loud is definitely a strategy that already exists. If you Google it, it should be there. Again, um, I was so focused on myself that I didn't think I forgot who the author is. It's one of those things that becomes so ingrained in your daily life that it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of taking care of myself as a caregiver, one of the things that is very annoying about the autism, again, I like that I have it. I'm happy that I have it. I wouldn't be who I am without it, and I like myself a lot. Not to be narcissistic, but kind of am. Lol. I'm kidding. Anyway, so it's the fact that I have a smaller reserve of energy to draw on than other people necessarily do. Because my social batteries run out faster. I need more time by myself to recharge. Um, and um, there's also the fact that I socialize differently. So it's like, okay, I only have so much capacity, so I have to understand my own limitations and do the best I can within them, and also keep checking in with myself to understand, okay, did I push myself too far? Am I starting to get weird and prickly because I haven't had alone time in long enough? And stuff like that. And so a lot of it is taking structured breaks away from the situations. Like, it's like, okay, um, my dad is again autistic. He has a routine he follows. He wakes up, he eats breakfast, he watches a video on either World War II or guitars, and then he'll go and take a nap. And so while he does that, I'll sit down with a book or something or my phone, and I'll take like a half an hour to recharge. And so then when he wakes up,
Mhm.
um, I'm like, okay, this is what we'll do here. And being able to tag team him with my mom really, really helps because we can sort of balance the responsibility. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
but yeah, as someone with autism, being able to take time for my special interests, Islands of Brilliance calls them spintrests, is helpful. I really like fixing computers, spending time out in nature, so hiking, gardening, yard work, stuff like that, reading, creative writing. Being able to balance that out and carving out a specific time for that, even if it's only like a couple minutes, is really, really important. Um, yeah. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
just
And
want to
thank you
interrupt.
for all those images. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Harriet, I'm just going
Yeah.
to interrupt really
Yeah.
briefly as we are coming up to the time for
Okay.
the end of the panel. It has flown by. Hoping that you can just take a look at some of the remaining questions and bundle them together to talk a little bit about that time of transition, and
Hmm.
then we'll have to transition ourselves. So, just wanted to let you know where we stand.
You bet. Well, thank you for that because I was wondering how we were doing on that. So, um, yeah, there's a good number of people that are in that transition, ages 13 to 25. And some of you have been through that. Some of you have been there and will be there again. So, as caregivers, um, when you think about, and probably Danielle and Kaylin have the experience of caring for someone through that transition period, um, how did that change your caregiving? How did that change what you did or how you felt or how you thought through that period of time when they were also um, looking toward becoming adults and taking on adult um, responsibilities? Danielle, can you speak to that?
Happy to share what we experimented with and what worked or seemed to work well for our family. And that was, I think, for me as mom and as someone who is in this constant mode of providing support, 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 I had to get out of the way, frankly. I had to identify that constantly helping him was not helping him as we approached this time and so I needed to be more intentional about talking about adulthood, what it means that the rights over him are going to move from dad and me to him and start letting him decide more things in his life. I think that as mom, I would oftentimes take the path of least resistance, right? If there's a decision that needs to be made, I would just make it. Um, that wasn't helping. So there was a pivot that we had to make and be intentional about. Um, but I think it was really, I think it was really helpful because he's a strong self-advocate today. So even when I'm on the receiving end of, and I've gotten this lecture from him, Mom, you can't tell me I'm an adult and not let me be one.
Mm.
Um, as mom, that was hard for me to hear,
Yeah.
but later I came back and I'm like, you know what, buddy? You're right. You're right.
Yeah. It sounds like
You,
you went from being a mom to being a coach.
yeah,
How
yes.
about you, Caitlin? Your sisters went through that transition. How did that change your caregiving role?
Yeah, it was especially for my sister Kelsey, transition was a really hard time. I think before a lot of our experience, we were on autopilot. We were kind of doing what we were being told to do. Um, as a family, we weren't really communicating about the future in a way that was really grounded in reality. I think in some ways we were all masking. Um, in order to try to fit into a box. And Kelsey was the both the consequence of that and also the like lightning rod for change in our lives as a result. She experienced autistic burnout at a pretty severe level. That was not terminology we had at that point when she was about 19. But what it instigated in our lives was much more open conversations about the future, her future, my parents' future, their aging process, my responsibility as a sibling, my younger sister's role in our future. And that conversation is one that we haven't stopped having now in Kelsey's 32, so 12 years, really. It's a conversation that got started, and we've gone through many, many iterations of roles, changing who's responsible for what. As my younger sisters have gotten older and felt like they could also be on this team in their adulthood, their roles have changed, which have changed mine. But ultimately, what we did was we started future planning, and then we never stopped. And that was it was a hard lesson to learn in the way that we did. And the thing that I would always encourage folks to do is to be more open, have more open communication about all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and be future planning together kind of constantly as a result. All of our relationships with each other are healthier as a result of that.
Mm,
And even if the plan changes 10 more times in the future, I think all of us feel more grounded in being capable of dealing with it because we've been so honest now. But we
yeah.
weren't before, and I wish we could have been.
What I'm hearing you say is even though as caregivers we might have the mask on as a superhero, we need to take that mask off and be real and think about the reality of the future and open that communication. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask the final question, and that is if you could be,
Harriet, this
oh,
is Tim again. Before
yeah,
you ask that final question,
yeah,
I think we have a unique opportunity here with Colleen on the panel to answer sort of a question from the person that was receiving caregiving from a family member growing up. And if there was anything in your experience, Colleen, that the wonderful Betty did really well, and maybe something that you wish the wonderful Betty may have been able to do a little bit different, a little bit better as that person moving from somebody who was caregiving for you into adulthood.
Okay, I know that we don't have much time, so I'll keep this brief. Again, Betty is my mom. She's very, very cool. One of the things that she and I did really well together was when I was younger, I would say probably about like 8 or so, she started letting me come in for my own IEP meetings. Again, this was forever ago. I've been out of high school for like 10 or 11 years. But I would say the sooner that you get your autistic young adult or child even involved in understanding that the future is, they have a hand in it, the sooner you do that, the better. Um, the sooner, if it's possible, the sooner you show them that they can have an impact on what their caregivers, what their educators, et cetera, are doing with them, the better, because that gives a level of autonomy and security that if people are just deciding stuff for you that you really don't have. Uh, Also, one of the things that we didn't do as well as we could have, but we managed to improve on as time went by, was communication. Because one example would be when I was in high school, I was very, I would say, socially oblivious. I was like one of those kids that doesn't really make waves, and I was just kind of there. I was just kind of nice, usually drawing or reading a book or whatever. And apparently they voted that I needed to be prom queen. And I was like, what? And my mom was like, oh my God, that's such a wonderful opportunity. Because that's what she would have wanted as a neurotypical person, as an holistic person, as an extrovert. But I am basically the polar opposite of that. And so what happened with that was I was like, no, we're not doing that. I am not doing that. You have to go with your second runner-up person, your second choice, because that would involve a lot of social stuff that I don't have the capacity for, and frankly don't want to do. Um, and so that was hard because it's like, wait, don't all high school girls want to become the prom queen? No, they don't. They very much do not. And then another hard one was when I was in college and I was pursuing fine arts as my major. I wanted to become an illustrator or an art teacher or something. And I realized that it wasn't financially feasible. And also, this was when we were having some really severe budget cuts in the schools. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work. I have to change my major. Oh God, oh heck. And I thought it would be a really big, scary deal. But because I wasn't following the plan for success that we had thought of and kind of laid out. And I was like, I want to change my major to English. And I was terrified to admit that to my parents. And my mom and dad were both like, oh, wow, yeah, that's going to be way more lucrative. Are you going to be happier doing that? And I was like, yeah. They were like, oh, yeah, you're going to probably be able to get a job more easily. That's probably going to be a better transferable skill anyway. And I'm like, amazing. Um, but understanding there's a concept called the dignity of risk, which is it comes into play when there's like someone who has a disability or something like that. And it's understanding that, yes, even though you feel the need to protect this person, they also need to be able to take risks and be an adult, especially for young adults, within within reason. It's like my parents would not have allowed me to get a credit card at like age 18, but they were certainly okay with me changing my major at that age. Um, and so it really depends on your situation, what that's going to be. It's like obviously don't take a horrific risk, but within reason, within uh autonomy and stuff like that, that's one of the things that I would definitely recommend. So yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Mhm.
gives us all something to think about. Even if the person we're caring for doesn't have autism, that dignity of becoming an adult is critical. Um, I appreciate your words on that.
Mhm. Thank
Tim,
you.
do we have time for our last question?
Not realistically.
Okay. All right.
Hold those questions. I would love the answer to those. So if the panelists, the final question, if you had given a superpower, if you could put it into the chat, that'd be fantastic because we're going to move along. Um,
Actually, Tim, may I suggest that anyone on the call,
oh my gosh,
if you could get any superpower, what would it be? What
love it.
superpower would be helpful? Oh, teleportation. Oh,
Love it. All
yes.
right, let's put those in the chat. Harriet, thank you so much. Panelists, Colleen, Danielle, Caitlin, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate it. This was fantastic.